Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
Yeah, there's going to be big impacts to fish and certainly to fishermen.
Are they spawning? Are they not going to spawn?
You know, a lot of dams are coming down. And
funny, but not. One of the spots I recommended was, the dugouts in the Cheska ball field.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts, or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
It's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio.
Well, we're starting to see the effects of forward-facing sonar. There are some limits being dropped. We'll tell you where that is and why coming up in a little bit. Welcome to the show. I'm Brett Amundsen along with Dan Amundsen and David Eckhart. What's up, fellas?
Yo. Not a whole lot. Another day.
We are back in the States.
Are we, though?
After, well, kind of. I mean, we were in Ontario. We came back. We're going to Saskatchewan. We're coming back. We're going back to Ontario. We'll tell you all about that.
And it's 2028.
David's going to Manitoba, I suppose. Ontario? Yeah. Manitoba. Ontario? Is that Ontario? Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll talk about what he's going to do, maybe or maybe not. I don't know. We're going to talk about all kinds of fishing, including what we did to catch some of our walleyes on our recent trip. What worked coming up here in just a little bit. Before we do that, though, we are going to talk about who the sponsors are on this week's show. Dan Amundsen is going to tell us all about that as soon as he is.
Yeah, this is a problem because
I'm just going to keep talking.
No, because
real
here's
slow.
A little inside radio. Normally, I have this written down in my notes section of my computer. My notes section is gone.
Yeah, I was wondering why you had
it is completely gone. Like, I will show the world here.
A blank page pulled up.
Oh, well, that's a blank screen. Hang on.
Much like your notes.
No notes. They're all gone. I had passwords in there.
Oh, no.
I had the sponsored read, combos to the locks at my cabin, my grandpa's cabin.
It's giving all your secrets away.
I mean, well, I can see all that on my screen.
I don't care. Yeah, this is gone. It's out to the world. Yeah. My social security number is now gone.
Did you try rebooting the router?
Well, I could shut the computer down, but that means the show will be over.
Well, let's.
So, hang on. I think you could see if they're on my phone, but this is scary because I'm pretty sure I have the same iCloud account on my phone.
Oh boy!
I know this is exactly what people tuned into the radio station to listen to today on Sporting Journal Radio. Okay, we're good. I think we're fine. Well, Invergrove Toyota, the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever, is Invergrove Toyota. When looking for your new rig, head over to Invergrove Toyota. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this open water season at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the OnX Hunt app today. Tazen Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tazen Lake. Learn more at tazenlake.com. Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all at Devil's Lake. Prairie Sportsman, the new season is wrapped up, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for local air times they might be on. Haybill Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake this summer at Haybill Heights. Learn more at haybillheights.com. And Guardian Eagle Resort. Come fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. Fly directly from Minneapolis. Learn more at guardianeagle.com.
Nice job.
I'm surprised you don't have that memorized by now,
David, it changes like every week. I think, you know what, I think on-air production meeting, we make David do this from now on.
Oh, we definitely could.
I've got enough going on over here.
You guys have seen Joe Dirt when Kid Rock tries to read that letter? If Joe calls, that's what it would be like.
It's Dirte. All right. Forgot to mention, too, Scott Mackenthun and Darren Troseth are going to be joining us to talk about the Minnesota River. Obviously, we've been seeing all the flooding that's been taking place in the last couple of weeks. So we're going to talk to them about what changes the river may see over the summer here. And Joe Henry will talk about the Rainy River and sturgeon fishing. Sturgeon fishing real
in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure we told that on the air, but that joke is because nobody at airports outside of Minnesota can pronounce the word Minneapolis.
Nope.
Maybe because they don't want to acknowledge it exists. Neither do we.
That's probably what it is. Well, we didn't have to take a plane for our last trip to Ontario, Dan. We drove and then took a boat.
Well, yeah, we did.
It was a good time. And fishing was a little tough this year.
It was very unstable weather across the whole entire region, and this area was no different. So we found some walleyes, but we had to keep a few northern pike for our annual Amundsen fish fry. But as a lot of people ended up learning on this trip, and you and I know this, we all know this, northern pike is delicious when you learn how to take the Y bones out, which if you don't, hey, guess what? We got a video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. What's his name? Trevor Montgomery, that's his name. From Tasman Lake Lodge. I need to read
Slow down, Dan.
Well,
take a breath.
It took so much time to do the sponsor read that we got to get through this all very quick. So there is a video on our channel that you can watch to learn how to take the Y bones out. And then northern is arguably, some people might say, better than walleye.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it is, to me, just as good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of northerns, but part of that was we caught big walleyes. We caught walleyes that are too big to keep. And that's a great problem to have.
Yeah. And we caught them. We did live scope a couple of fish. We had live scopes running, and we did use live scope to vertically jig up some fish. I used all artificial. In fact, I used Northland Tackle Eye Candy on jigs. First cast, David. Get the trip. Dan and I hit a point. We what's going on here?
I don't know.
We went to this point where we've caught fish before, and Dan's not even ready to fish yet, and I'm rigged up. I'm like, I'm just going to take a quick cast off this point. Boom, 21-inch walleye on a jig and a plastic. I'm like, we are going to smash. It's going to be epic. And I don't think I caught another walleye for a couple of days. So then we ended up catching most of our fish, pulling spinners, and Dan caught two of the three biggest walleyes on the trip. Actually, he caught three of the four biggest walleyes on the trip.
Yeah, and then if you ask our Uncle Denny, they were some of the biggest fish that he's ever seen in his life.
Which is
so not true.
His son caught a bigger one on
this trip in the boat with him.
Well, I was in the boat with him.
Well, so was
Denny. Wasn't there? No, it was just me and Craig.
Oh, well, yeah. But last year he caught supposedly a 32.5-inch walleye. It's on the trophy now, so it's official. Yeah. It's such a load of Amundsen BS.
It was funny to hear his dad said Dan caught the bigger fish, but
I will.
Pulling spinners, Dan.
Yeah. Back to the old traditional trolling spinners. And guess what color? I bet you Joe Henry could get one guess and know exactly what it is. Hammered gold.
Hammered gold. And were you using
eye candy?
Eye candy.
Yep.
Okay. So
this worm right here, that exact worm caught a 27-incher and a 29 and almost 30-inch walleye. That's the official measurement, 29 and almost 30.
Very cool.
That same one. They're so stretchy, they can absorb scent, and they don't break off. So you can use the exact same one. And the only time I switched it was because I decided to change one out to get fresh scent on there.
Well, I think
it's still in the jar.
Between you catching those and me catching fish on plastics in front of those guys, I think we changed some minds on live bait versus plastics. And we're going up to Guardian Eagle Resort in Ontario in a couple of weeks here. We're going to bring some of that stuff up. And maybe Northland sent you some new stuff, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, there's some new plastics that came out. So there's a larger paddle shad. There's now an eye candy leech, both a rigging version and a jigging version. Those are cool. And then this guy, the Minnesota mullet, they made it for bass fishing. They probably want me to go catch a bass on it. But I kind of said, hey, I'm going to bring that to Tasman Lake Lodge and catch a big old lake trout on it. Because now I just need them to get a glow version made. But big jig head, a lot of hair. This is going to get, hair jigs always are a lake trout staple. So a little extra hair on this guy. That's going to catch some Lakers.
So when Dan opened that package up and I was sitting across the room from him, he's like, oh, check these out. And he held it up. I thought it was a spoon. If you hold it up again, I thought it was a big spoon that he was showing me.
Yeah, it's huge.
From across the room.
That's the size of a half wave.
That's a big hair jig.
Looks exactly like a half wave, pretty much. The colors are, it's white and black, I guess, versus a half with a red and white. But anyway, we'll bring those up. Maybe catch some smallies on them up in Ontario, or some walleyes probably, or maybe some pike. We'll come fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. Bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike on 75,000 acres of private water. Fly directly from Minneapolis and be at their concrete runway at the lodge in 2 hours, right from Anoka. Learn more at guardianeagle.com, and we'll be there in a couple of weeks doing some filming. We'll show you just how easy it is to travel there and catch that. Man, they catch just piles of walleyes up there. It's pretty wild, and we don't have to worry about lowering limits up there because limits are obviously very conservative in Ontario. But Dan, they just lowered limits down in Mississippi. Our friend Richard Sims, who we met down at Alabama on the Glow trip last month, he wrote an article about crappies. The crappie limit in Mississippi is being reduced, and they're saying it's because of forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, and to clarify, this isn't a statewide deal.
It's on 4 reservoirs.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up the details here, but go ahead.
Their limits down there, I think, were 15 per guy.
Yep.
And they're going to drop them down to 10 per guy. But they have something different down there. They have boat limits, David.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
So, but I suppose if you're crappie fishing, you could load up 10 guys on a pontoon or a big rig, and especially if you're guiding, you could go out there and just
fill buckets.
Pillage the lake, yeah. So they're going to drop the boat limit from 40 to 25, and they're going to drop the daily limit per person from 15 to 10. And they're saying, due to their creel surveys, they're saying they went up from 20% of anglers using forward-facing sonar in these reservoirs up to 70% in the last 3 years. And it's a 12-inch minimum on those fish, too.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is pretty remarkable. So will this be the beginning of more restrictions due to forward-facing sonar? Comment below and let us know your thoughts right here if you're watching this on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. We got Darren Troseth and Scott Mackenthun joining us here in just a second to talk about the Minnesota River and what effects all this extreme flooding may have on the fishery itself. And then also Joe Henry is going to talk about sturgeon fishing in the summertime up on the Rainy River in just a little bit. But first, I want to tell you, if you're looking for a summer trip, Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all at Devil's Lake. Walleye fishing, perch fishing, of course. The white bass has gotten big up there, and big pike, too, on that lake. Find out more. Go to Devil's Lake, North Dakota, to do some fishing this summer, or get yourself a winter trip planned and fish out of one of the snow bears that are roaming around on Devil's Lake, North Dakota.
Now is the time to start thinking about chasing big walleyes on Devil's Lake. Get on the fish at Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Haybale Heights makes it easy for you to make memories on legendary Devil's Lake with guided fishing and lodging packages. Or bring your own boat and rent one of their cabins on East Bay. Haybale Heights offers a private marina, fish cleaning station, and the opportunity to relax and enjoy your bucket list trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. To book your trip, visit haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Brett Amundsen along with Dan Amundsen and David Eckhart over there. Thanks for tuning in on the network by demand or watching this on YouTube. And if you spent any time on YouTube or watching the news over the last couple of weeks, you've seen what all the rain we've gotten this year and the wet weather and all the flooding that's taken place in Minnesota River specifically has been hit pretty hard. And we wanted to talk about what effect all this increased flow and the increased water is going to do to the river and the fishing and the businesses that spend time on that river. So Scott Mackenthun is going to join us along with Darren Troseth. Scott and Darren, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for the invite.
All right, Scott, we're going to start with you because you work for the DNR. You obviously do a lot of fishing. It's been pretty wild watching this river and then seeing a dam fail. It's been a pretty crazy time around the region, not just the Minnesota River, but around the region. There's been a lot of water.
Yeah, to really think about having a incredible amount of rainfall like this and to see record-breaking flood conditions wasn't anything any of us expected coming out of a winter with very little precipitation. I mean, you could maybe say that was a blessing, although you would have expected to see a snowmelt peak. This is just unprecedented level of precipitation and something that really came out of nowhere. Just the rain never stopped, and it was heavy and intense in a lot of locations and always seemed to fall into the Minnesota River Valley and southwest Minnesota. And so, and I shouldn't exclude northern Minnesota. They've had plenty of rain too, but the dagger definitely fell in the southern third of the state.
Well, when we actually went up to the Gunflint Trail last week, and we thankfully our timing was good because we got there pretty much a day after the worst part of it. So some of the roads were opening back up. The trees were being cleared off the Gunflint Trail, and Cook County obviously got hit pretty hard, and the town of Cook got hit pretty hard. So we were very fortunate there. But boy, to see what's going on with this, the Rapidan Dam, and see what happened there, and that house that was next to it, and the guy's garden. I know David was worried about the tomatoes, but it's amazing the amount of damage that water can do.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that one of my colleagues put it to me this way: you're looking at channel processes that would maybe take decades or even a century to move and have migration and movement and move around and move materials. You're seeing that in a matter of days or a week. So, Rapidan Dam is just symptomatic of something that we're dealing with as a society and a world, which is aging infrastructure and how we treat dams and how they're used ecologically, environmentally, and as infrastructure and hydroelectric generation. And what do we do when this happens? I mean, we basically have had, as another former colleague put it, a tourniquet on the Blue Earth River for over 110 years. And at some point, it was going to break open that tourniquet, and it finally happened.
Well, it's pretty interesting, and we could sit here and talk about infrastructure and dams, but really, what I wanted to bring you on, and you too, Darren, is to talk about the fish and what this is, and obviously, this isn't the most important thing that's happening in the river, but when it comes to guys like all of us that spend time fishing on the river, it's kind of one of those questions that comes up: is what's happening to the fish, and how could this change the way fish use the river, and anglers who target those fish use the river?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump into and Darren can give his 2 cents. I know Darren's got incredible intestinal fortitude, because he's actually been out on the river about a week ago when it was close to the peaks. I couldn't pull off what he did, but yeah, on the fish side, it is sort of fascinating, right? Like, you are going to see major impacts from this flooding. Where do the fish go is a popular question right now, and they're holding on for dear life, right? Like, these fish are moving out of the channel onto the floodplain where there is, slower flows and pooled water. They're just trying to hold on. They're going to get behind whatever cover they can and just try to ride out the storm. And because they're a cold-blooded organism, they can take a pause. They can let things roll for a couple, 2-3 weeks without eating, but they'll find meals where they can in that slack water. But that's a lot of what you're seeing. And then you are going to see some loss of fish that can't keep up with the physiological strain. They'll get washed downstream. You'll see entire cohorts, just get knocked out. A year class, if there's a young, a spawn that was pulled off, and those fish just get flushed out completely. We see that particularly with salmonids, young smolts, or that stay in a stream and get washed away. And you see that with other fish as well. So there's winners and losers. There's going to be new habitat that's added. There's going to be big changes to the river, and there can be benefits to species, cleaning up, taking sediments off of hard structures, bedrock and boulders and that sort of thing, cleaning things up. There's winners and there's losers. But in the interim here, yeah, there's going to be big impacts to fish and certainly to fishermen.
I want to ask Darren about his time on the water here in just a second. But first, for those of you in the Twin Cities area and you're looking to get yourself a new truck, make sure you stop into Invergrove Toyota, because they got some deals on some Tundras. And in fact, we got a deal that you can take advantage of as well, the Fish Hunt Forever deal. If you go to our website, or if you're watching this on YouTube, we will put a link down below here for you so you can go take advantage of the Fish Hunt Forever deal. But they have a deal on Toyota Tundra leasing right now at Invergrove Toyota, just $599 a month with $3,000 down. It gets you 10,000 miles a year on approved credit. So stop into Invergrove Toyota, 494 in Robert Street, and talk to them about leasing a Toyota Tundra. You're going to love it. All right, Darren Troseth, Three Rivers Fishing Adventures, is with us right now. And obviously this you're normally guiding on the river this time of year, and obviously that's not happening, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, like you say, to be talking about it when you're watching people's houses fall into the river.
Right.
But
Right.
I feel fortunate that it hasn't been affected to me that way. But I've done 2 trips all this year so far, and I probably had 20 to 25 scheduled, which I've all had to cancel or move around. And so, yeah, it's definitely an impact, but nothing compared to what some of these other people are facing. So I'm just kind of taking it in stride, and it's amazing to see what this water can do. One of the stats that really has impressed me is last fall, this gauge down by my house here, I'm just a mile from the river, and it was at 3.75 feet. And, you almost couldn't get a boat in because the water was so low. And now we're going to top out at 35 feet. So that same exact gauge, we're 32 feet higher, which, you put it into perspective. You go out and, look at a 3-story building. That's how higher the river is. It's amazing.
That's unreal. And I know you sent me a picture of a boat access, and the entire parking lot was underwater, it looked like.
Yeah, that's the same access that is right down the road here. And yeah, I mean, you can't see the ramp. It's a lake. And what's crazy is, like Scott was saying, you can get a boat out there. And a friend of mine did that the other day. We went out on Sunday, and we got a boat in the water. We messed around a little bit and, tried to put a line in the water and catch some fish. But I was talking to another reporter, and he came up with a pretty good word, using wanderlust. That's kind of what it is. You just want to go out and see what's happening, and you're really curious because you spend so much time out there. So it's not necessarily the safest thing to do, but you just, you want to get out there. You spend so much time out there, you want to see what's happening.
And did you catch some fish? Is that a picture from that day? That's sturgeon?
Yeah, that's one of the fish we caught. We went way up into a creek and found a little school of shovel nose up there. And
cool.
We didn't expect to catch anything really, but we just were out messing around for a bit.
Gosh, I mean, we could easily change the subject and talk about sturgeon, especially in the Minnesota River, because that's pretty neat. But we'll stay on topic a little bit here. So, when you were out there, like, what are you seeing? Erosion? What kind of, is there a lot of water over the banks, or was it like a lot of debris in the river, or what did it look like?
Mostly just there's my boat right there. That's what you see right there. That's all underwater. That orange sign is underwater. Jeez. That brown sign, that's all underwater. It just looks like a complete lake right now. So that was just 2 days ago, and it looks completely different. So, but to get back to your question, it was mostly just water spilling over the banks. The water had been this high a little bit previously. So what happens is all the deadfall, the water's been low for so long, all those trees and stuff come down. And then as the water hits a level it hasn't been at before, then it starts washing all the debris out. So right now we haven't seen this water level. So I expect there's probably a lot of debris out there right now, just because it hasn't been this high before. But the day we were out, it wasn't too bad. So we felt fairly safe.
Did you fish any particular spots that you've caught fish at in the past, and even see fish in some of those areas, or is everything changing?
Yeah, it's a whole different river. You don't even see these spots. It's like unrecognizable. So essentially what you would need to do is, like Scott was saying, these fish are finding spots where they normally wouldn't be, getting out of the current. As basically the biggest thing, just these backwaters. I mean, we were fishing in spots that were once, cornfields and, things like this, things you would never even think about going. We're, down snowmobile trails. And it's amazing to see what the water does. And someone was mentioning today in one of these Facebook groups about, maybe someplace to go for fish from shore. And funny, but not, one of the spots I recommended was, the dugouts in the Cheska ball field, completely underwater right now too.
Wow. I mean, it kind of sounds like walleye fishing in the Dakotas, looking for road beds or barns or something like that.
Buildings.
All right. We got to take a quick break. Scott Mackenthun and Darren Troseth are our guests here right now. More with them coming up in just a little bit. And don't forget, if you're looking for a trip to catch trophy lake trout in northern Pike in northwest Saskatchewan, check out TazandLake.com. As a matter of fact, Dan and I are spending some time up there filming a new season of Tazen TV. You can watch that now on the Tazen Lake Lodge YouTube channel, or go to TazandLake.com for more details. Hunting season will be here before you know it, and it's time to get ready for your next adventure with the onX Hunt app. Whether you're traveling in search of roosters, elk, waterfowl, or looking to score on a whitetail close to home, onX Hunt can help you be more successful this season. Route, plan, and navigate with private and public land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the Hunt app on the App Store or Google Play and join the millions of hunters that trust onX Hunt. We're back. Sporting Journal Radio. Darren Troseth, Scott Mackenthun, our guests here, along with Dan Amundsen and David Eckhart in the studio. David, you spend a lot of time on the Minnesota River, down in that Granite Falls area. What have you been seeing with all this flooding?
It's pretty high. I haven't ventured out. The landings have been flooded, and it's just the water's flowing pretty fast, and I don't feel like fighting the current to try and find a fish, so waiting for it to drop. But in town, I've noticed that nothing's really flooding since the dam downstream got taken out, whereas the water probably would have been 10, 15 feet higher than what it is now. So.
And it used to flood a little bit with the old dam in there?
Yeah, Main Street used to flood. And
how long ago did that change?
I don't remember exactly when it came out.
A few years?
Yeah, 5-10 years maybe.
All right. So Scott, I know that's been a big push lately, is updating the infrastructure of dams or removing dams, and a lot of that is for fish movements and things like that. When you think about these events that are taking place right now, what if obviously an event like this is being taken into account when you talk about removing dams, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an inventory of dams in Minnesota, just like I think most states and federal entities would have them here in the United States. You'd be paying attention to that. And they have an age, right? I mean, that's what we ran into with Rapidan. It was, 112 or 114 years old. They have a life expectancy. Nothing lasts forever. The big thing when you think about dams is there's this idea that streams themselves are just moving water. But the truth of the matter to the layman is that streams are also moving sediment with them. And when we put dams up, that's stopping that sediment transport. We can still pass water over. We can send it through chutes or spillways or send it over, a portion of a dam, but you're never passing sediments fully, and that's where you really get a huge maintenance impact. The backside of Rapidan Dam had, 100 years of sediments that are built up behind it. And as we move forward as a state with grappling with what are we going to do with this structure and the flanking that occurred, it's, what do you do with the sediment on the backside of it? So, yeah, environmental and ecological concerns are sort of playing into that. And now, a lot of dams are coming down. And, we think about fish, right? We all love to get out and fish, and we like to see intact fish communities and that are functioning naturally. Well, think about your favorite fish. It's got to have a spawning area that has specific habitat. It has to have rearing habitat that's specific. It has to have adult habitat. It has to have cover. It has to have all these different things that make up the attributes of its individual habitat requirements. And in many streams, that's compartmentalized. It's in different locations. And if we slap a dam in, we're just stopping that. I mean, in that Rapidan Dam example, I think there's 37 fish species that are found in the lower Blue Earth River, but they're not found in the upper. So talk about one of my colleagues referring to the Rapidan Dam as a tourniquet on the Blue Earth River. Well, that's sort of the reference, right? I mean, it's not passable by fish, and that's important to, everywhere that there's dams in the world.
So would there be a plan then? I mean, well, that sediment now is probably getting pushed down the river, I suppose. But, I've talked to people about a lake like Lac Parle on the Minnesota River and all the sediment that is filled up in that lake. And the Army Corps has a lake level that they try to maintain. And yet for guys that go out there and fish, it's like, man, it seems like the water is really down this year. Yet the lake level's at the same, but potentially there's been so much sediment filling up in it that all of a sudden now the lake is shallower despite the lake level being at the same thing. So it's kind of an interesting issue to have to deal with, and one that maybe people didn't realize could be an issue. But if you've got a bunch of sediment building up behind a dam like that, would there have been plans to get in there and try to dredge some of that out? Or, what do you do with something like that?
Well, so I know on the Blue Earth County website, there is actually an old engineer's recommendation, and that includes some of that mitigation. I mean, it's going to take, quite a bit of time and expense to do that removal. That's why it's not real easy. Can't get into the finger pointing game of like, well, you should have done this because you've known for 30 years that this dam was in disrepair. Well, it is an incredible amount of money to take down the dam. So you have to have a little bit of grace with officials and spending on infrastructure. But yeah, you're right. It's something that would have to happen over a long period of time and with considerable expense.
So, Darren, you've been fishing on the Minnesota for a long time. You've seen that river change. You've seen levels go up and down. It seems like the last couple of years we talked about levels going up and down on that river. And then you also spent a lot of time on the St. Croix. Have the levels changed? Is that river up, or have you seen any differences out there at all?
In general, I mean, all the rivers are at a higher level right now. And I was actually referencing that earlier today, talking to someone. We're really lucky that this event didn't happen right after a spring runoff, because that's what happened in 1965, and that's why we had all this devastation and reconfiguring of levees and stuff to try to prevent that in the future. But had this happened, in a spring runoff, that St. Croix would have been high, the Mississippi would have been high, and that all would have filtered down, into pools 2 and below, and everything below that probably would have been devastated. So the St. Croix is high. It's above no wake level, so the entire river is no wake right now, and that's probably keeping a lot of people off of it. I still think you could get out there and fish, but people are just kind of a little afraid of the no wake. But some people actually like the no wake. It keeps all the pleasure crafts off of there. So some people are taking advantage of it. So it's actually in the back of my mind, like I might try to go over there maybe sometime during this long holiday weekend, because I don't have many options. So I'm going to have to take up golf or bass fishing.
My God, I mean, the St. Croix is such a beautiful river, and it's a great fishery, and it's such a neat place. But my gosh, on a Saturday around about 10 or 11 a.m. on a Saturday, I don't want to be anywhere near that place in the sun, like on a weekend when it's nice out. So I think I would love the no wake zone, and you don't have to go far. I mean, you've got accesses up and down that river. You don't have to go far to catch fish. So,
at this point, finding the access is the hardest.
I suppose that is tough.
There's a couple private marinas that'll let you put in probably, but for the most part, everything's shut down.
And there's portions, at least at the time we're having this discussion, there's portions of Pool 4 that are no wake too, right? I've seen some of that in Goodhue County.
And Pool 2, the counties are starting to, and that's kind of a gray area. Like, I don't know how the county overrides the feds. Like, there's kind of, I don't understand how that works, but just, it's kind of a weird deal.
Did you have something there, Scott? Were you going to say something?
Well, all I was going to jump in and say was just to piggyback what Darren said is I think about this level of rain that we've had, and if we had this happen a year ago when we had this impressive snowpack, and that really long winter, we had all that snowfall and we had winter kill and we had massive amount of snow, and it all melted at the same time, it all came off, and then you coupled it with this expansive rain. I mean, it would have just been catastrophic. We're already catastrophic and exceeding or flirting with the 1965 flood record, and yeah, I mean, that would have been an absolute perfect storm. I mean, you try to find the silver linings, and, there's winners and losers. I mentioned excavating new habitat and changing things up. We're also filling up, backwaters that have been dry basically for 3 years. So, I know some folks that love fishing backwaters and putting YouTube videos together and chasing big fish. So they'll be right back in the game with backwaters recharged.
Well, as the river recedes, you're going to have some fish die off in some of those spillover places, I'm sure, when they find a place to hide out there and then can't get back into the rivers. The river level drops. But what else? I mean, when you talk about a river ecosystem, there's a lot of other critters in there, from turtles to mussels. And after the Pomme de Terre project that took place out here that we did a big story on with Prairie Sportsman and the mussel relocation, I mean, I'd assume all those mussels are all getting flushed down the river there too.
It's possible. We definitely don't want to talk to a malacologist about that, but I'm willing to bet that if they're dug in a spot, it's just a matter of what is the river channel doing. There's going to be spots that are going to be graded or cut away, and there's going to be spots, degraded and cut away, and there's going to be spots that are A-graded and material is placed on top. And it's just a matter of where those mussels are located. They may be able to, tumble downstream and settle out in a spot where they're just fine. And, as long as you have that habitat connectivity, they're able to make their way back. If you have the right habitat conditions, they should be able to come back too.
So how long do you think it'll take before you could go, as the river goes back down and, conditions return to whatever the new normal might be in some of those spots? I mean, how soon do you think you'd be able to go back and fish some of those old spots that you fished in the past?
Boy, I mean, I'm thinking this is, still weeks away. There's pluses and minuses. I've said that over and over, but I really enjoy taking my family out sandbar camping because we had an abundance of sandbars. You're below ordinary high water and you can camp where you'd like and throw a line out, and was looking forward to it. Actually put it in the schedule, and I'm reconsidering, and that's an August date. I'm reconsidering if that's even going to be possible. But I just, my boat's not going to get wet. Darren's been out a couple times at least, but I think it's going to be at the end of July.
Yeah, Darren, I mean, when you've seen river levels fluctuate, and, obviously this was kind of an extreme event, but when you've seen them fluctuate like that, how often before, are you just constantly moving around, or are you able to eventually go back to some of your favorite spots?
That's one of the reasons I like fishing the river, because it does change so often, and it's never the same. Even your favorite spots change from year to year. But I pay really close attention to that gauge, the NOAA gauge, and I'm looking at that thing, sometimes several times a day, just to try to gauge on, when that river is going to be rising, when it's going to be falling, what spots will open up to me and be available. Right now, I'm kind of putting a bullseye at, maybe the third week of July, when I can just start thinking about getting back out there. What really is not good for the situation, though, is like the spawn. Like, what is this going to do to the spawn? Because catfish generally spawn, from mid-July to, start of August, somewhere in that area. The channel cats are a little earlier, so they might have been done, actually. But what is that going to do to the fishing? Are they spawning? Are they not going to spawn? Is it going to just move it out later in the year? We won't know until we get out there and start catching some fish and figuring things out, so...
Well, obviously there's more important things involved with this than fishing, but this is near and dear to our hearts as well. So I wanted to have you guys on to talk about it. Darren Troseth, Three Rivers Fishing Adventures. Good luck out there, and of course, Scott Mackenthun. Appreciate your knowledge on the subject, guys. Good luck this summer, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
If you want to catch a big walleye, go where the big walleyes are. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with a variety of resorts and lodging facilities offering full-service fishing. Lake of the Woods is also home to sturgeon, sauger, perch, trophy pike, muskie, smallmouth bass, burbot, and more. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods today. Go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, now it's time to get another fishing report from Lake of the Woods with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, Brett, doing well, buddy. Summer fishing's in full swing, and thankfully the lake's healthy, so things are going well.
Well, it's that time of year where people might start. Obviously, most people are probably coming to Lake of the Woods for walleyes, and I want to talk about walleye fishing up there in just a second. But people are going to maybe start thinking about sturgeon a little bit. Some midsummer sturgeon fishing up there.
July 1st, openers was the opener sturgeon fishing, and it's kind of cool because now the sturgeon season is going to stay open all the way to April, and right now and all summer long, it's a keep season, they call it. So you can go out and do catch and release sturgeon fishing if you want to, but if a person wants to, you can pay $5 and get a sturgeon tag. Got to do it ahead of time, of course. And then when you're sturgeon fishing, if you catch a sturgeon that's either 45 to 50 inches or over 75 inches, you can keep one sturgeon per calendar year. In fact, you actually tag that sturgeon and, have to call that tag into the DNR. But, a lot of people, and there's so many sturgeon, like people think, gosh, is it bad to keep a sturgeon? There are so many sturgeon that the DNR monitors them very closely. Trust me, they would not have, a keep season if it was going to hurt the sturgeon population in any way, shape, or form. Brett, the DNR says that from about Morrison, Ontario, which is just over the border of the Northwest Angle, from Morrison, Ontario, all the way down through the Angle, through the basin, Big Traverse Bay and Lake of the Woods, into the Rainy River, they estimate there's over 100,000 sturgeon over 40 inches long. So, we have a very, very, very robust sturgeon population. And, if a person would want to come up this summer and just maybe do something a little different, or if you bring your own boat, if you go on a charter, the lake's not a problem with wind and stuff. If you bring your own boat and it's a real windy day, and just for fun you want to fish the river just to get out of the wind a little bit, you got 42 miles of navigable Rainy River, and sturgeon could be a really nice option for a day or part of a day.
Yeah, you know, when you think about our tournament there in April and just the amount of sturgeon that got caught while we were up there, I mean, obviously that sturgeon population is doing just fine. When you heard about, didn't they caught 31 one day, I think, in their boat?
Yeah, I think the first day.
My gosh. Think about that.
And not only did they catch 31, but if you recall, when they took a picture of their live scope, I think it was them, there was like 6 fish on the live scope. There'd be like 3 on the bottom and 3 suspended. And I mean, it was pretty darn good.
It was really good. And I mean, that's a world-class sturgeon fishery right there. I mean, show me another place. You know, there's a few places around the country where you can go out there and catch a bunch of sturgeon. Minnesota's got a couple of decent spots, but man, I don't know how you beat the Rainy River for sturgeon fishing, Joe.
Oh, it's darn good. And, you know, the thing of it is, too, it's like it's not overly complicated. You know, it's like if we would go salmon fishing, as an example, you really kind of need specialized gear. You got to be dialed in on thermal climbs and trolling speeds and dipsy divers and jet divers and planer boards and downriggers. And, you know, when you go sturgeon fishing, you know, ideally you
just need to know gear. You just need to know who's going to have the grill on the boat when you sturgeon fish, I think.
Yeah, well, that's Alex. We know Alex has a darn grill. We give him a hard time with it. We got a buddy of ours who's got a boat that's very enclosed, like a living room. So because in climate weather, they're in there, you know, whooping it up inside that living room, as we call it. And now to make it worse, he added a grill to the back of the boat. He grills off the back of the boat while he's sturgeon fishing.
That's awesome.
There's a picture of his boat. That's not even right there. That's bad, you know.
That's so much fun, and that
it actually looks a lot of fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a buddy of ours, when we anchored up during that SJR 500 tournament, we had, I don't know, what do we have, 4 or 5 boats all anchored up in one spot, and then one of the guys had a flat top in the bow of his boat like that, Tony, and he grilled up burgers for us, and then they delivered them. So that him and Mike, they drove around to each boat and handed us a burger, and then went back, anchored up, and went back to sturgeon fishing. It was great, and somebody had music playing, and you know, it was almost like a 4th of July party on a sandbar somewhere. Only we're catching, 50-pound fish.
We went spring fishing with Jamie Dittman, and what did he have? One of those, what are they called?
Jet boil.
Jet boil. Mm-hmm. And then he brought like pasta dinners, and I mean all this stuff that was freeze dried. You mix it together with the jet boil, and it cooks that stuff literally. It boils water in like a couple of minutes. And you pour this stuff in there, and he's got Jamie, he's got the exact brands, exactly which foods are the best. He's got it dialed, and you know, we're eating a hot meal out on the boat in the spring of the year, and you know, food. You know, let's face it, man. When you go on vacation, or you're going to go, whether it's really good sandwiches, whether it's a jet boil or a grill on your boat, or I mean, it's part of it, isn't it?
It is. It's all about the experience, and when the fishing is good, it just makes that experience even better. And you brought up the fact that sturgeon fishing really isn't that difficult. And when we talk about walleyes at Lake of the Woods, you're like, well, it's that time of year you can start pulling spinners, or it's all of a sudden it's a leech bite now, or whatever. You talk about, you know, maybe changing tactics throughout the year. Sturgeon, I mean, now that we were talking about spring fishing earlier, and now we're talking about summer fishing, it's still pretty much the same presentation, isn't it?
It is. It is the same presentation. And, you know, really, in a nutshell, and sturgeon will live in different parts of the river. They'll live on flats where there's food and things like that. But in a nutshell, you know, finding a hole in the river, you know, a depression in the river bottom, you know, normally those sturgeon are going to be in that hole. And if you want to fish in that hole, or maybe just upstream from a little bit, and then, you know, normally what you use, Brett, is you use a no-roll sinker, which is simply a flat sinker that won't roll in a current. And you know what? The size of the sinker, the bait stores up there all have this stuff. But they can help you well with the current being a little bit more robust like it's been this year because of the lot of the rain we've having. You know, some people might use a 5-ounce, no-roll sinker. And then what you use is what's called a sturgeon rig. And you can buy those up there, so you don't have to make them. But what a sturgeon rig really is, it's just an 18-inch piece of leader material with a circle hook, usually a 3 or 4-aught circle hook. And then you put that on with that no-roll sinker above it, and then you load that hook with either a whole bunch of night crawlers, as many as you can get on there, or you put on there a combo of night crawlers and frozen emerald shiners. You pitch that out on the bottom, you put your rod in the rod holder or set it against the boat. Ideally, set your boat up so it's not swinging. Ideally, the back of the boat is stable because then you can better to tell those light bites. And believe it or not, when a sturgeon hits, it's not going to just hammer it because it's a big fish. It's a little tunt, 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 you know, almost like you're catching a sucker or a catfish, right? And then with that circle hook, it's a very conservation-minded hook because that sturgeon could take that bait down a little bit. But when you set the hook, you don't set it and swing your rod with a circle hook. What you do is you just reel it tight.
That's not what I do.
Yeah, and how many do you catch?
Yeah, I always set the hook because I'm so just out of habit. Oh, God dang it, missed another one.
I think you do that just to get a rise out of Danny.
Pretty much.
It drives me nuts. While we're trying to film, it's like, hey, let's get a fish here. And he's just, I don't think he was there.
I'm back.
Or you just pulled the hook right out of his mouth.
Nah, I need a bass fisherman hook set on all my sturgeon.
Like, go bass fishing.
Try to break the rod, like Brandon says. No, it's easy fishing. It's so much fun, and obviously the fish are absolutely the biggest fish in the state of Minnesota. So it's such a unique opportunity up there to do that, and the fact that you can go up there in the summer. And like you said, I was going to bring that up. You go up there to fish for walleyes, and if it's a little windy, or if you want to take a break or whatever, rip over to the river and or fish the gap or whatever, you're going to be able to hook into some of those giants and just anchor up or spot lock or whatever.
And I think there's a couple other things too, something to be considered. Number one, let's face it, that river, 42 miles of navigable Rainy River, doesn't get a lot of traffic in the summer, so you're not going to have a lot of boat traffic. It is absolutely beautiful. And, when you talk to, remember you interviewed Kevin, the Dutchman from Royal Dutchman, he talks about when he fishes sturgeon on the river, one of the things he really enjoys is all the different species of fish you catch in a river.
Well, we caught burbot in the river, which I thought was wild. And Dan caught maybe the biggest sucker I've ever seen this year while we were up there.
That was an absolute trophy. I have a beautiful picture with that fish. I was more excited to get a picture with that fish than the sturgeon.
I'm going to get you. We usually get a replica mount of that one for sure.
That'd be wonderful.
And we'll just knock that off the wall.
Danny, I give you credit for. No, but I do. I give you credit, Danny, for just get enjoyment and appreciating every species, especially when you catch a monster sucker that could be close to a state record, let's say. I mean, there's I don't know how many, I should know this maybe, but there are a variety of suckers in the Rainy River, meaning different species of suckers, different kind of suckers. There's a number of them. And I know this from doing like visitor guides and stuff and putting all the fish in there. There's a whole bunch of different kind of suckers that live just in the Rainy River alone. Quite interesting.
And sometimes they're in the boats on top of the Rainy River, setting the hook on circle hooks, trying to catch a sturgeon. That was a joke about me.
Hang on. Where is it? I can't find it.
I don't know what that was. It had the cadence of a joke.
That's it. Where is that?
Who knows?
I can't find it.
I thought you were going to look for that picture of you with that sucker.
I don't know what you mean, but
there it is.
It had the cadence of a joke.
Timing is everything.
Thanks, Purd.
It's brilliant. Yeah, Purd.
Does Joe have any clue what we're talking about?
Parks and Rec. Thank you very much. Do you have that picture, Dan, anywhere? Or,
I don't know. It's on a hard drive, probably buried in an archive.
It is a good one in any case. So it's just like the tug is a drug, right? And the state of Minnesota is trying to change the name of the classification of those fish from rough fish to native fish, and it's not going to fool everybody, but it is. I know guys that go out there and try to target suckers, especially in the spring when other things close down. It's a chance to catch fish. Some river fish in the spring, and they're fun to catch. And it's a challenge. Like Dan and I have talked about trying to make a video going carp fishing. As much as I hate carp, and I don't want carp fishing to get popular like it is in other parts of the planet, but those carp are giant. We got some just massive carp around here that would be a lot of fun to hook into. So I'm still gonna pick walleye fishing at Lake of the Woods every time over carp fishing, though. And Joe,
I'll say this much. I don't want to get into carp fishing too because that's taking me away from the Rainy River and Lake of the Woods. But when I was a kid growing up in St. Cloud, we'd go down to the Mississippi River, and my cousin and I would catch great big carp. And we'd bring him home and bury him in his mom's garden.
Fertilizer.
And his mom, to this day, says her tomatoes have never, ever been so good.
Yeah, for sure. Carp flavored. All right, if people want to make a trip to Lake of the Woods, Joe, what should they do?
You know what? Hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.